a morning of honoring and hearing from our students, of celebrating their gifts in and among us, knowing that as we as a church demonstrate week after week, we are not perfect. And my hope is that you all can walk away knowing you don't have to be perfect either, that you don't have to have it all together, that every narrative in our world tells us that we have to be. Every story you're going to hear out in the world is putting pressure on you to have it all together. And the fact is that every single individual, students, that you look out and see these folks, not a single one of them have it put together. A few of them actually think that they do. They don't, okay? Most of them don't have any sense that they think they have it all together. But somehow we continue to believe this narrative, even though we all know that it's not true. And 1 Peter comes into our lives in the midst of difficulty, in the midst of suffering and hurt and pain and a world that's all a mess, and continues to share this message with us that God's grace is enough. That it's not about me. That it's not about you. I hope you realize that when you are reading the Bible, you are not reading a book that was written to a person. You're reading a book that's written to a community of people. That's important. It's one of the reasons why I often start our services by helping us recognize that we've come to church together rather than on our own. Faith was never meant to be yours to hold alone. We've spent the last 100 years or so talking about our personal relationship with Jesus. It's nice. There's something good there. And yet, there's an idolatry there that goes along with the same idolatry and narrative that is out there in the world, that it's all about you, the individual. And it's not. That is not the thrust of Scripture. It is not the narrative of our faith. It is ultimately about the community of faith, holding each and every single one of us. That, yes, I believe in God the Father, Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, right? But also, and this is the one that comes week after week after week in the life of the ancient church, is this Nicene Creed. And it talks about we believe. We believe. We together hold one another in this space. And so 1 Peter comes in here and talks to the whole community, suffering, going through difficulty, going through this life together. And that's where you find grace. Because I promise you, if you are left alone to your own thoughts, your own consciousness, your own ego, that ego ultimately turns against you, points a finger at you, and tells you that you are not enough. It is the message that I hear at 3 a.m. most nights. My own thoughts will always betray me, will always accuse me, will always be the ones that tell me, no, you're not good enough. That's why we need a community of grace. And in this text today in 1 Peter 5, Peter looks at this community and tells them, what does it mean to be a community together? It's actually the scripture text where we get this word Presbyterian from. He starts out the whole thing here in chapter 5 by talking about being elders together. That word elder here is this word that is co-presbyterios, okay? This idea of being these elders together, that we don't lord authority and power over one another. And obviously our denomination's taken that, kind of as our brand and as our value right there, but I want you to understand what that means in the context of a narrative that says you have to have it all together. No, we're in this together. This isn't on you. This is spread out across people. And it's not about you looking like you have it all together either. Peter in this text goes out of his way to go, hey, humble yourself. Humble yourself. Clothe yourself with humility. That runs very counter to our world, to the values in our society. We are not a world of humility. We are not a culture of humbleness, are we? And yet it's that very pride in and around an individual that lifts you up to the place of being godlike, of being Lord-like, of being king-like, that tells you that maybe, just maybe today, you will have it all together and go out and get it all done, figure it all out, and solve your problems and maybe a few other people's problems. That's called pride. And Peter says, humble yourself. It's this weird thing for us in our culture because we don't like humility, because we think about being humiliated in our English language. But really, it's taking a step down and going, oh, I'm on an equal plane with everybody else. They're a mess. I'm a mess. Hey, friends, we're all a mess. But it's in the messiness that God comes to us and says, oh, friend, you are enough. You, in who you are and who God has created you to be, you are enough. And in that place, you get to cast all of your cares, all of your worries, all your anxieties on to God, because God cares for you. That word cast is used only one other time in the New Testament. It's the same word that gets used in on Palm Sunday, when those folks are ripping down all of those palm branches from off the trees. They cast down those things. A better translation here would be to hurl. I want you to think of this morning what it might mean for you to hurl, to throw, to cast, to toss, violently almost, all of your cares, all your worries, all of your anxieties, all your narratives, all your stories, all the senses that culture says to you that you've got to have it put together. What does it mean to grab that and just toss it hard and go, that's not my story. I am part of a community that holds me together. I am part of a community that holds me up. I am part of a community that says this is not all on me. And so, seniors, when you are going out into the world, everything's telling you you've got to know what your major is, right? You got to know where you're going. You've got to stick with it, right? You can't ever show those imperfections. You can't do any of those things. That's not true. You are at the prime moment in your life to be, to explore, to discover, to make mistakes, to look around at a whole community of people, particularly in this choir. There's successes and failures in each and every person here. And they could give you stories, some of them wild stories, of all of those successes and failures. And here they all are, decades after the moment many of you are about to go upon, still singing, still lifting up their voice, still holding one another. That's what church is, friends. That's what faith is. So stop trying to do it on your own. Look at someone across the room. Find a face. Maybe it's one that you know well, maybe it's one you don't know well. And I want you to look at that face and go, that person's with me. And I'm with that person. And then I want you to find 5 other faces. And keep doing that, friends. Peter ends his letter talking about some folks that are in other places in Scripture, some of which seem obscure and some of which come along our paths and cross our paths and weave back and forth into our stories. This first one was Silvanus. It's better translated in all of our other English translations as Silas. Y'all remember Silas? Paul and Silas in prison, right? It's the same Silas, friends. He pops up back again here at the end of 1 Peter. In Rome, probably after Paul has died, now alongside of Peter. And Peter commends his brother Silas to these folks. Silas is actually one who is writing with his pen as Peter dictates it to him at the end of his life. He also lifts up his son, Mark. Mark is this person who in the book of Acts that comes alongside of Barnabas. He's this young disciple of Barnabas, and he gets scared and afraid in the midst of difficulty and suffering, and he runs away, and Paul is like, nope. When Mark comes back, Paul's like, nope, he's out. And Barnabas goes, Paul, no, he's in. And guess what happens? Paul and Barnabas part ways over it. And I love it because Paul wrote most of the New Testament, but guess what? Paul was wrong. Barnabas holds on to Mark. And Mark goes on to be here at the end of this book of 1 Peter to be in this relationship with Peter that Peter calls him his son in the faith. And like Mark, and like Silas, we don't have to have it all together. Our journey continues on. And maybe at the end of it all, at the end of someone's letter, at the end of someone's life, they lift up your name and go, you're still here. In all of your wild imperfection, you are still here. And by the way, Mark went on to write the second gospel in the New Testament, the Gospel of Mark. May we know that we don't have to have it all together. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to be close to perfect. We just got to look around and say, I'm part of a community of faith, a community of amazing grace. And with that, choir, Amazing Grace.